Niche fragrances for beginners. So if you're getting into fragrances, I would not immediately recommend going straight into niche fragrances, mainly because they're extremely expensive, and you don't want to blind buy them either. I would recommend getting samples first, or unless you manage to find a really cheap niche option, which is very rare, you can go with that as well. But for niche beginner options, I chose some that I think are just generally very likable. They're known to be likable. You know, they're not crazy or anything. They're just good, reliable options. So that's what this video is about. So I'm going to start with one that I think is just kind of a good option in general. It's pretty smooth, which is, let's see, Replica Jazz Club. If you like tobacco, some boozy notes, but a little bit more subdued, this is a good option. It has everything you would expect a jazz club would smell like. That warm, toasty, smoky scent, but it's not crazy. It's not going to just blast the whole room and give everyone a headache. It manages to be nice and warm and toasty without going crazy. Definitely not obnoxious. It's actually very balanced, more on the sophisticated side. And now longevity, I do actually wish it was a little bit stronger, but for what it is pretty good. Longevity is about 6 to 7 hours, so relatively moderate. But again, for this type of fragrance, it's really well-rounded. It has some spice notes in it, blended with the tobacco and the boozy notes. A very pleasant thing to experience, especially if you are a fan of those heavier notes already. And especially if you want to go for something that smells kind of mysterious. You know, this smells mysterious, like you're in the back of the cabaret somewhere with some cognac or something. But definitely a nice, sophisticated, warm option. Best for colder weather or the evening. I would not wear this in the middle of summer. It would just kind of ruin the fragrance. But besides that, a good fragrance as a whole. Then, for something also very inoffensive, I would say Xerjoff 40 Knots, especially if you're looking for a marine fragrance. This is not very strong. It's going to last probably no more than 5 hours, maybe 6, but this is kind of meant to be a lighter option. Although it is stronger than other aquatic fragrances, it does have better longevity and better projection. Some good sea salt notes, some good citrus notes. In general, it is very fresh, refreshing. It kind of has that very natural ocean breeze sort of scent, which is hard to capture, but they definitely managed to accomplish it. Very masculine as well. It's kind of like a way better version of Davidoff Cool Water or Acqua di Gio, or something along those lines. Just amplified and made a little bit more refined. But again, the main kind of downside is that it's not very long lasting, but for this type of fragrance, it is kind of meant to be just a lighter fragrance as a whole, so you can't really expect it to last too long, but you can always reapply it if it fades too quickly. Then, moving on to something, if you want to kind of wear something more fun, then I would say Kerosene Follow. This is an extremely strong fragrance. If you know you like coffee and you know you like sweet notes, you probably really like this. Now, I believe this is unisex, but it is very sweet, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. Not that it necessarily becomes more feminine because it's sweet, because there are, plenty of men's fragrances that are sweet, but it is really sweet, so you do have to watch out for that. It's kind of on par with 1 Million by Paco Rabanne in terms of sweetness, or kind of latent from Parfum de Mali, maybe even a little bit sweeter, so definitely expect that. But again, if you like coffee notes, you'll like this. It is very, very strong. It's gonna last all day, probably like 9 hours minimum, and it is fun to wear though. It smells really like a coffee shop, with some like maple syrup in the background sort of thing. It kind of reminds me of autumn a little bit. It is kind of toasty and warm. I think there's some musks in there as well. But definitely I mean, this is a sample. You gotta try the sample first before you go for the whole thing, especially if you're blind buying, because this is either you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, and then hate yourself for spending so much money on it. But again, just expect some sweetness and some very, very strong and pretty authentic coffee notes, and you'll be good to go with this particular kerosene fragrance. Then, another one is from Sèche du Temps here, Ambre Sultan. This is a little bit more difficult to deal with for some people. Again, I would recommend getting a sample first. This is a very resinous option. Not for everyone. It doesn't work for everyone. It's relatively rugged. There's no sweetness. It's kind of dry, very exotic and smoky. It has lots of amber in it, myrrh, myrtle. It kind of smells like some sort of fragrance someone would wear like 2,000 years ago, in biblical times, getting these resins straight from the tree and then adding some incense, kind of it just has that very exotic, old-fashioned feel. But it is quite good. If you like resins and you like smoke, this is a good option. It's very seductive, very heavy, smoldering, mysterious, and all that. So definitely a good option if that's what you're looking for, but otherwise you would probably want to be careful with this one, because again, it doesn't work well for everyone. Then moving on to the last one that I have, which is another kind of universally liked option, which is Creed Green Iris Tweed. Now again, I have to say get a sample first, mainly because I think the full bottle of this is almost $500, so that's not a very beginner-friendly price, but the sample is more beginner-friendly. Green Iris Tweed is a very nice 1980s kind of classic men's scent. This is the type of scent you would want to wear in more formal occasions, or if you want to at least appear more formal, more in control, more confident, calm, collected. Definitely a more mature type of fragrance. This is not, your fun teenage sort of fragrance. Again, more calmer, simpler, and very elegant as well. It primarily has notes of lemon verbena, a little bit of musk from the ambergris, some florals like violet and iris, but for the most part, you're getting something that is green, kind of refreshing, but also has the musk of the ambergris for some warmth. Relatively long-lasting for being a lighter fragrance. It's about a 6-hour fragrance for longevity. But again, it is a good, reliable, just gentlemanly, masculine option. But that is pretty much my list here of beginner niche fragrances. Again, I don't really think niche fragrances are something that beginners should go for right away, just because they're really expensive and some of them are kind of out there. But these ones I think are pretty agreeable for most people. So that is pretty much the video for today. If you enjoyed it, of course, you can always leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I make videos like these throughout the week, so stick around for those.